Greetings, Edward the MetaTutor here, and today we are talking about loops. I've already published videos that cover loops, but I wanted to publish 2 more videos that focus on specific tasks that a programmer can tackle using loops. In the present video, I will cover using loops to repeat a task, rather than for searching a string or a list for something. That will be another video. If you are not yet comfortable with the syntax for while and for loops, this video might be a bit confusing, so I recommend watching my other videos on loops first if that's the case. You might be able to make it through this video, but I'd still recommend starting there. For my introduction to computer science class, I ask my students to complete a project to demonstrate the material they've learned. I'll be using these projects as my examples for this demonstration. Basically, the code that I've already written works as intended, but it doesn't repeat itself. I will demonstrate how to modify your code so that it does repeat itself as necessary using these examples. So the first example that we already have up is a guess the number game. The purpose of the game is to guess a number that the computer has randomly generated. It tells you if your guess is too high or too low so that you can determine how to make your next guess. As it stands, there are 2 major issues with this code. The first one is that if we run the code, it greets me as I want it to. But when I enter my guess, let's say 50, it says user input is 50, 50 is too low, guess higher, and then it exits. So obviously this is a bit of code that's in dire need of a while loop, and there is a very easy solution here. The easiest way to tackle this problem, and this is a relatively straightforward example, is simply to indent all of this code, or all of this code. We want the target outside of our while loop, we'll be using a while loop for this. We want the target outside of the while loop. That's where we actually generate the random number, because we don't want it to restart. We don't want it to generate a new number every time we guess, because then it would be impossible. Then if the number keeps changing, then we're also having, the too high or too low doesn't help anymore. So I'm going to grab all this code, indent it over, and I'm just going to create a while true loop right there. And this is an infinite loop. So that's the easiest way of doing it, and it's a little bit messy, but the reason why it's so easy is it works, it repeats infinitely, and all you have to do is for the code where the user wins, simply type break. So the keyword up here, while, it creates the loop. True tells me that it's going to repeat infinitely. Basically, the code inside here, normally it's an expression like I is less than 5, but now it's just true. So long as this thing is true, it's going to repeat, which means, well, it's true forever, because I've literally typed the word true, so it'll repeat forever unless I type in the break keyword. And so the break keyword exits whatever loop I'm currently in, the most proximate loop. So if I have like 30 loops, it's the one that I most recently started. And that right there should do the trick. If I run my code, 50, user input is 50, 50 is too low, so I want to guess higher, 75. Guess lower, okay, so 63, let's go with. Guess lower, 57, too low. All right, so now we're going to do 61. Ooh, that was a little bit too high. I knew that was coming. 59 is too high. I think 58 is my last. Boom, awesome. So user input is 58. Congratulations, you win. See, so the while loop in here repeats the part that I want it to. It asks me for my guess, and then it compares my guess to the right answer. And it repeats that until I get the right answer, and it breaks. Perfect. Another way that you can solve this problem is by creating a specific condition inside your while loop instead of while true. And so what we can do here is I will create the user input variable up here. User input equals, and I'll just make it blank. Or actually, I don't want it to be a string. I just want to make it, I want to make it something that the target value 100% cannot be. And so this range up here is 1 to 100 inclusive of both. So it can be 1, and then it can be any number between them, and it can also be 100. And so user input, I'm just going to set to -1, because it's impossible for -1 to be the target value. And what I'm going to say is, well, target is not equal to user input. So while these two variables, the randomly generated number and the user input, are not the same, we're going to keep repeating. So we're going to continue to go through our game, while, and then we're going to print, we're going to ask the user for input. If the user inputs the right number right here, the code doesn't exit right here, where I'm drawing, where I'm putting in comments. It does not exit right there. The while loop only evaluates the validity, the veracity, the truth or falsity of this statement, of this expression. It only evaluates that at the end of the code, once we've gone through all of the lines inside that we need to go through. And so if the user inputs the right number, it's still going to have to run the rest of it before it realizes, oh, okay, user input is equal to target. We're done. Let's get out of here. And all this does is it makes it so that we don't need to type break anymore. If user input is equal to target, now this becomes false. Previously, we had it as true, which meant there is no way that could ever become false. But if we do target is not equal to user input, then at some point, target is going to be 50, user input is going to be equal to 50, and 50 does not equal 50 is false, which means we stop the loop. So this should work the exact same way. Let's go again. And I'm using a binary search method to guess the number, by the way. Oh, hey, and it works. And that's a computer science thing that I would love to go over in a separate video. But I got it right on my second try. And it works exactly as I said it would. So there you have it. Those are two ways that you can use while loops to loop the code that you want to do here. The final example that I want to use is very impractical, and I'm going to use a for loop for it. But the final example I want to use is maybe not the best way of doing it, but it is definitely a way you can go about it. Let's say that you wanted to limit the number of guesses that a user had. So I previously mentioned that I'll be using a binary search method to guess the number. If I deploy that, or if I employ that method properly, then I think that my worst case, the worst case number of guesses that it takes for me to guess is 7. Maybe 8. I forget how it rounds. I don't have the number in front of me, but basically you take a log base 2 of 100, and I think it's like 7.6, which I think that you'd need to round that up to make it 8. But either way, that means that worst case, if I keep doing the binary search method, which is half, 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 right? 50 is half of 1 to 100. And then, that's too high. Then I do 25, which is halfway between 1 to 50, and so on. Then it takes 8 guesses, worst case. So if somebody takes maybe, let's give them like some leeway. If somebody takes more than 12 guesses, let's exit our loop. We're going to keep looping the same way that we wanted to previously, but let's keep track of the guesses. You could do this with a while loop and simply create another variable, guess, that's, guess equals, or guesses equals 0 right off the bat. And then, whenever we accept user input, make it equal to increment it by 1, guess plus equals 1. And then you could do something while target is not equal to user input, and then add an and statement and say and guess is less than, let's just say 12. So while guesses is less than 12, which means it'll run for 0, which would be the first guess, and then 1 means the second guess. That's a little bit awkward. Let's just start it off with 1. All right, so then, I'm just going to set it at 0. I'm confusing myself. But guesses is less than 12. If it doesn't work how I want it to, I can always change it later. But now we basically have 2 conditions for a while loop. And I want to see how that works. And then we're going to do the exact same thing, but with a for loop, which I think just makes it look a little bit prettier. So I'm going to do 49. It's too high, so I'm just going to start going higher. 52, 53, because I don't want to guess it. I want to run out my guesses. So 57, 58, 59, 60, 61. And so, see, eventually it just kicks me out. So You could do something along the lines of, you could check to see, like somewhere in here, you could add an additional line of code that checks to see if guesses is equal to 12, then print too many guesses. You lose. Bye. Something like that. You can do that along the way. And here we have it. So again, now I'm just going to guess 50 a bunch of times because I realize that's slightly more efficient. Kick me. Boom. There it is. Too many guesses. You lose. Bye. And so this is another way that we can, add another factor into when we exit our while loop. I didn't get the right answer. Target is not equal to user input, but the and statement means that both of these things has to be true. And so since this one is false, guesses is not less than 12, it ends up kicking us out of the loop. A way that you could do that with a for loop would be simply to change this to a for loop. I think that the easiest thing to do would be not to use the target is not equal to user input. You could do that, but I would say basically for guesses in range and then just say 12. You can get rid of guesses equals 0 up here. You don't need that anymore. That's one of the benefits of the for loop, is that it creates the variable for you right there. And then instead of, we no longer need the if guesses is equal to 12. Actually, yeah, I think we do. We want it. What we don't need anymore is we don't need to increment it. That's, again, another thing. So we don't need to create guesses equals 0, and we also don't need to increment it. It automatically increments guesses for us. Whatever variable you name right here for I in range or for guesses in range, whatever, that is it. It creates it, and it starts incrementing it at the end of your code. For that reason, we would have to do for guesses equal to 11, because that means that if it's 11 down here, that means you're about to restart, and then it's going to say, oh, 12 is out of the range. That's that's right before it increments. And so that still works. We would have to break, though, for the right answer. So now we're going to have to go back to the previous code that we had for the while loop, where we break if we get the right answer, since I just have this basic for structure. So the for loop only cares about guesses, but then I can also check to make sure that if somebody gets the right answer, I break. And I can also make sure that I give them a goodbye message. So let's try it out again. 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. And boom. 50 is too high, guess lower. Too many guesses, you lose. Bye. There we have it. And then one last one for good measure. Let's actually try to get it right. Guess higher. 75. Too low. Guess higher. Ooh, I think it's going to be 84 next. Guess higher. I think I want to do 90 right now. 92 maybe. Guess lower. All right, so halfway between those two. Oof. 88. Guess higher. 90. Guess lower. 89. Boom. Congratulations. You win. And there we have it. That exited here with the break statement, not with me getting too many guesses.